What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Week 13 edition of Rotoworld Live. My name is Josh Norris. That's Ian Hartitz. That's John Daigle. Gentlemen, how are we today?
Everything fits a little snugger after Thanksgiving, but other than that, we're doing well.
Best holiday of the year is come and gone, but hey, Week 13, let's do it.
Guys, I gotta be honest, it's a weird Sunday. It's like ice, rain outside. I have a 101-degree fever. I'm spinning with all the medication that we're on, but you know, this is an important day in the fantasy season. People are trying to lock up those playoff bids. Hopefully they've been tuning in all season long. Let's make sure people make the playoffs.
Our job is really to temper expectations today, because there's already been a lot of overreacting because people are winning ends. It's like the most important week outside of playoffs for fantasy football.
Let's make the difference.
Thank you for playing through your questionable tag.
That's what I'm here for. You know, I'm the Matt Breida of the fantasy football industry. All right, speaking of Matt Breida, I'm sure we'll talk about him a little bit later on. As you all know, we will get to the core four matchups, the core four games of the weekend. Also, your viewer questions, the most important part of the show. Leave them in the Twitch and YouTube section, and we'll get to them throughout the entire show. But we start off with the blurbs of the week. We've got some new starting quarterbacks in the league, and let's start with the Cincinnati Bengals. They moved away from Andy Dalton to Ryan Finley. That experiment with the rookie third-round pick went absolutely brutal, so now they're back with Andy Dalton here. Ian, again, we talked about how important this week is. People might want to play Tyler Boyd. People might want to play Joe Mixon, maybe even Andy Dalton. How should they attack this Bengals offense?
I'm cool with Boyd and Mixon for sure, especially Boyd. I mean, we look at weeks 1 through 8 when Dalton was their starting quarterback, and Boyd was number 3 among all wide receivers in targets, number 5 in receptions. He was overall PPR wide receiver 16, so that's legit wide receiver 2 production. And now we get this matchup against the Jets defense that we shouldn't fear by any stretch of the imagination. I understand their new cornerbacks have come in and played reasonably well, better than what we're used to seeing, but it's still a defense that does a much better job stopping the run than the pass. And again, we talk about this all year. There's only 5 or so defenses that we need to truly concern ourselves with. The Jets are not one of them.
Let's go to the other quarterback, because I don't know if you really have anything of note to talk about Andy Dalton with. Let's go to the Broncos, going to rookie second-round pick in Drew Lock. This is a team that, you know, went out of their way to sign Joe Flacco. John Elway saying, who's a loyal listener of the podcast, I might add. Then he went out and said that Brandon Allen is going to be the starter. Brandon Allen started for a couple games, and now they turn to Drew Lock coming off injured reserve. What's your read on Courtland Sutton, who's had a major breakout season, but also that backfield some people might want some attachment to as well against the Los Angeles Chargers today?
Well, Lock failed his only resume in the preseason that we have to date. 31 of 51 for just over 250 yards, barely over 5.5 yards per attempt. He is, as we knew out of college, wildly inaccurate. That makes him fun to watch, but at the same time, this is a Chargers defense that's getting Derwin James back, getting Adrian Phillips back, had been surging even before that. Their pass rush is the concern here. And also the Chargers, both left tackle and right tackle, hobbled and or on their backups. So it's really a terrible situation for a rookie to get thrown into. So I would be slightly concerned if you're a Broncos fan today.
And the Broncos are just 3-8. It seems like this audition will last throughout the rest of the season. And if he plays well, then Drew Lock should be the quarterback moving forward. But if he doesn't, the Broncos are probably in a position to make a change at the position this offseason again.
I do like Phillip Lindsay in the spot, though. I mean, I agree with you what you're saying. Kind of hard to trust the passing game here. But look, since their Week 10 bye, it's been the Phillip Lindsay show. 60% of the snaps, averaging 17 combined carries and targets per game. Freeman's only been at 40%, 6.5. So, yes, this was a fairly evenly split backfield for the first 2.5 months. But it's the Phillip Lindsay show now, so hop on.
I mentioned the Rotoworld Football Podcast every single Monday morning on your way to work. We have a review, a recap of every single game from the weekend. So I know you probably can't tune into the Broncos and Chargers today, or the Bengals and Jets today, and you don't want to. Well, in a quick 1 hour, we recap every single game from Sunday. So go and subscribe to the Rotoworld Football Podcast right now. Should we end some viewer questions?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, Dr. Detroit 8. Eagles defense or Browns defense? Rain, no James Conner, no Juju Smith-Schuster, facing Duck Hodges. Big game at home. We know that obviously this Browns defense is now without Myles Garrett. They do get Larry Ogunjobi back in this matchup, but this Pittsburgh offense might be one they want to attack, because with defenses, all that we care about are sacks and turnovers.
I'm still going with the Eagles here. I mean, the one thing, and their secondary has been playing better lately since they got Ron Darby, Jalen Mills, their starting cornerbacks back, but their strength all season has been that pass rush. I mean, even when they were struggling, they're still a good fantasy defense because of all the pressure they get on the opposing quarterbacks. And this week, Eagles defense, which Miami offensive line, single highest combined pressure rate of any matchup.
Defenses are limited, their ceilings are limited against the Dolphins because Ryan Fitzpatrick does tend to put up points. Having said that, every single defense to play the Dolphins this year has finished in the top 12. So there's your floor play every single week.
James 8484, Daniel, I'm going to go to you for this one because you write the waiver column every single week,
Boy,
and
do
these
I.
are two names that have appeared in that column this year: Jalen Samuels or Darrell Williams. We know that Damian Williams is out for the Chiefs. We know that Jalen Samuels has been in and out of the Pittsburgh backfield doghouse. Who are you going to go with in that backfield?
Jalen Samuels right now is more of a stash. Like, I was fretting cutting him on the teams I had because I'm not sure the safe projection is Benny Snell getting a workhorse role again. It wouldn't shock me if that's the case, but I don't think it's certain since that was the first time we saw all four back used, Trey Edmonds and Kareth White included. So I think the easy answer is Darrell Williams in this case, but I'm not cutting Jalen Samuels. I need to see it one more week and then figure out what to do.
I know this is simplified, Ian, but whenever I have a conundrum like this, just last flex spot, end of roster decisions, I always go with the player that's on a much better team. And the much better team is Darrell Williams in a much better situation with the Chiefs, especially today against Oakland Raiders.
Especially when we're not even necessarily dealing with a difference in workload. And both these guys could get 10, 12 touches. Take the guy with Patrick Mahomes under center.
I think Williams has the higher ceiling of the two. Like,
I agree.
If they are truly managing McCoy's workload as down the stretch, then that would entail a big game for Williams.
The days of backup Steeler running backs just walking into 80% rolls are over.
Are done.
Unless D'Angelo Williams makes some returns.
Snell can't catch passes.
All right, let's go all the way down to Chuck B, Will Fuller, or Odell Beckham Jr. You know, it seems like for weeks, this Cleveland team has tried to inject Odell Beckham into games early and often. But I would say this, and we'll cover this game in the Core 4 matchup. If you believe the Texans have a really good chance against the New England Patriots, then Will Fuller's going to have a monster day.
He's set up well. Jason McCourty, who's normally their faster cornerback opposite of Gilmore, he's already been ruled out with that groin injury. So I see why good things are there at Fuller, but come on, let's not play with fire. Let's not play against this Patriots defense. Just fire up Beckham. He's been much better lately. I mean, look, he hasn't had the season we were all hoping for, but he's still been anyone's idea as a wide receiver 2 more weeks than not. So I think you still go with Beckham. I mean, he's Pittsburgh, good defense, but I think the way the Browns offense is rolling, they can put up points on him.
He has as many targets as Jarvis Landry in the past 3 weeks, but Jarvis Landry has 34 more fantasy points in that time. So that would entail me to believe that Beckham has positive regression coming, maybe as early as today.
Let's go to Time Assassin, full point PPR. Melvin Gordon or Chris Carson. This Chargers offense just ain't doing it lately, and a lot of that is because just Phillip Rivers has regressed immediately in his career. Meanwhile, you have Chris Carson, and again, I'm going to add this as a full-point PPR. You have Chris Carson, who split the backfield 14 touches to Rashad Penny last week. Chris Carson only got 12. We're talking about this backfield more often, but it's tough in this big week, Daigle, for someone to go off Chris Carson, who has brought them to this point in their fantasy season.
And the argument would be for touches, but over the last 3 games, Melvin Gordon has averaged 21 touches.
Wow.
And it's a great spot that game script should allow him to see another 20-plus carries because, as we said, Drew Lock is on the other side. Von Miller came in as a true 50-50 decision, so who knows his full health as well. So, yeah, I love Gordon today.
Yeah, the every week 20-plus touch roll that Carson had is now what Gordon has ever since they fired Kem Wisenhunt, so I think you stay with the hot hand.
There are a couple Chris Carson questions, so let's spread all 3 here right now. That was the first one. Let's next go to DJ Q-Tip. Chris Carson, who you just talked about, or Miles Sanders. Without Jordan Howard, we could see a heavy, heavy dose of Miles Sanders today.
Doug Peterson has given Miles Sanders the top 2 highest snap rates of any running back since he's been in Philly over these last 2 weeks. So they love the guy. They're going to keep firing him up. Against the Dolphins, yeah, I mean, Chris Carson's awesome. I don't think he's going to put him on the bench or anything like that, but still, if we're talking 60% snaps versus 80% snaps, Sanders has a better matchup. He's probably got a higher touch floor. Go with him.
And both teams are favorites here, right? Philly's 9-point favorites on the road. Seattle was 3-point favorites at home. But you just look at the individual matchups, and the Philadelphia running game should have their way against Miami's defense versus Minnesota's defense. If they can be good in any way, it's stopping the run.
We're nitpicking. We're talking about 2 top 25 running backs. So I don't think there's a wrong
But they need
decision.
to win.
No, I'm going to answer.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's a wrong decision here. However, I would go Sanders. I think the floor is actually higher than Carson's this week.
All right, one more Chris Carson. Jonathan Williams or Chris Carson? This is from Yusuf Deli. We know Jonathan Williams has put up like over 100 yards in the 2 starts he has this season. He's been really good since entering the lineup from Marlon Mack, and Marlon Mack is aiming for a Week 14 return.
I'm still going Chris Carson here. I mean, he's had pretty good game script. Williams has so far. I know they haven't necessarily built big leads, but they've been playing at least in the game where they don't have to abandon the run. I mean, Carson, it's not like they're going to pull him off the field if they get behind for Rashad Penny and all these pass downs. Like, that could happen to Williams with Nyheim Hines. So I think Carson's a safer play out of those 2.
Agree?
I like Jonathan Williams, actually, who is being used as a workhorse without Marlon Mack. It is slightly concerning that Jordan Wilkins now has had 10 days to rest. Last week on Thursday night, no, but he came back in a case of emergency role.
Right.
And so the extra
But you
rest,
can't move off, John. Like, I know that Jordan Wilkins has these fans
I'm the one who
across
picked
the
Jonathan
Twitter
Williams,
universe.
so don't yell at me.
Yes.
I picked Jonathan Williams. But I'm just saying, there are concerns out there.
Right. This is an easy out for someone to be like, well, Wilkins is now healthy, and if Jonathan Williams doesn't get 100 yards, then it's Wilkins being
chill
bad.
out on the
I have my
Wilkins slander.
convictions.
He's a good player.
No slander, but no one's going to bench Jonathan Williams or give him,
Because someone
less
averaged 6
touches.
yards per carry.
Yes.
No, I agree with you. I think it's Jonathan Williams.
All right, first core 4 matchup, man, it's a good game. I know Chris Anise is watching it closely. I know Stats is watching it closely. San Francisco 49ers at the Baltimore Ravens. We know the 49ers are 10-1. We know the Ravens are 9-2. 46 total in this one, with the Ravens as 6-point favorites at home. It seems like we mention this often this season, but for the 49ers side, this is the most difficult task they faced offensively. Who stands out, and who do you want to play in the 49ers offense?
We all know George Kittle, auto start, top 3 tight end.
And off the injury
And
report.
he's getting healthier, and I don't know, he's still playing with a broken ankle, I guess. That dude's just a warrior. But yeah, you're starting George Kittle no matter what. I think Tevin Coleman's the other guy that deserves your attention because, look, everything else is just too crowded. Last week was the first time in a while they had Kittle back in. He had 6 targets. No one else had more than 4. I mean, I think Emmanuel Sanders and Deebo Samuel, we've seen they're good enough when they get the targets, but who knows when you're getting the targets in an offense that has multiple RBs, tight ends, wide receivers that can all catch the ball, and they're a run-first team. So the only other sure thing that we can just from an opportunity perspective is Tevin Coleman. I mean, with Matt Breida out, 52% snap rate, 15.5 combined carries and targets per game. We've seen Mostert take a pretty clear back seat. It was more of a 50-50 split with Coleman and Breida. So, yeah, no, I mean, look, it's not an ideal matchup, and I know Coleman's been a little bit frustrated. But with that said, Ravens, number 3 in DVOA against the pass, number 25 against the run. They funnel production on the ground.
It's a little bit concerning because I've been starting Tevin Coleman for weeks, and he's gotten in the end zone. I think he did last week, but previous to it's like 30 yards, 40 yards. The efficiency hasn't been there despite like 12 carries on the ground each and every week. And this is, again, from an overall defensive standpoint, the Ravens are very good. But as Ian mentioned, if there's one area to attack them, it's in the running game.
And they're still missing Staley again today. However, I still think Mostert continues to slide in. He's played 49% of the snaps the past 2 weeks as their backup. I think he slides in again as a flex play. And if you're worried about Jeff Wilson, like Jeff Wilson's only totaled 3 routes in the past 2 weeks. He just spiked
one
that,
for a touchdown.
He spiked that important 25-yard touchdown. For fantasy purposes, he doesn't matter.
Right. We talk about spirit animals, Ian. I feel like your spirit football player is George Kittle. I could totally see that.
Oh, I think
just a little bit out there, maybe uncontrollable at times, wants to fire themselves up. That's you.
I mean, I saw Scott Barrett say
unpredictable.
He said Kittle might be like the best non-quarterback just player, and there's a case for it. You can make that argument. The guy, what he can do in the receiving game and as a blocker, and just being a freaking awesome guy. Like, yeah.
See?
And he
that big smile
wears customized wrestling cleats, so maybe he's both of our spirit animals, actually.
George Kittle season.
Let's look at the Ravens offense, and man, it's a fun one. Any hesitation in playing anyone on the Ravens offense this week that you most likely would start? And I'm talking about Lamar Jackson, I'm talking about Mark Ingram, I'm talking about Mark Andrews, because this San Francisco 49ers defense gets after the quarterback. They have rotation up front. They demolish people up front. But again, we've said this about the Ravens as well, and look what they did against the Patriots defense.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we've seen this play out. You do not sit these Ravens guys. This is the league's #1 scoring offense, and they're just playing football like no one else is in this league right now. Like, there are other running quarterbacks in the league, but there's no one like Lamar Jackson where the offense is literally moving through design runs with him. So, of course, you're firing up with Lamar Jackson. I love Mark Ingram this week. I even like Hollywood Brown this week. We know he has that boom factor, and if you need someone that has a chance to put up a top 20 scoring week, and you have a low floor there, sure, but I'm okay with Hollywood. And look, San Francisco, they have this awesome D-line, but their D-line's really awesome when they're getting after the quarterback.
Yeah.
They've allowed at least 100 yards rushing in 8 straight games, and they've allowed more rushing yards than passing yards in 6 of those 8. So, again, we talked about the Patriots matchup before. What are the Patriots really great at? Stopping the pass. Well, the Ravens, they just want to run on you anyway. So I think, again, we don't need to really sweat this matchup.
Dago Vegas, are you surprised that the Ravens are getting 6 points in this one?
No, books would have it higher if they could, but then you probably wouldn't get any action on the other side. It's just, like, how do the 49ers truly stop the Ravens? Like, they have been elite in the slot, right? Quan Williams has totaled 186 yards allowed and 2 picks all year, and that's, as we know, where Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews are going to line up. But it doesn't matter. None of this matters. It's still the Ravens offense, right? Like,
I mean, the 49ers are a good football team as well.
I totally agree. But the Ravens, and maybe this is a negative for the playoffs because the Ravens are probably peaking too early, but right now they're peaking.
Yeah. It's one of those, I want to go back and watch the game that they lost against the Browns because, and this helps any offense, opposing offense. They go up early on the scoreboard, and the Ravens, we haven't really seen them have to work back in games that often. And so if the 49ers can do that, because you might have the best at creating open receivers in the passing game, which is Kyle Shanahan, versus the running game that is just unmatched across the league in the Ravens. So it'd be interesting to see which one wins out. All right, let's go to Motley5. Back to your questions again. Leave them in the Twitch and YouTube comments. Full point PPR. He's 6-6 and needs a W to get into the playoffs this week. Does he start Tevin Coleman, Christian Kirk, or Darius Slayton in his flex? We just talked about Tevin Coleman. Christian Kirk, we're a little bit nervous, Ian, that he's going to line up against Jalen Ramsey very often. And then you have Darius Slayton, who creates big plays with Daniel Jones. I'm
going with Tevin Coleman. Just give me the guy where you're getting at least 10 touches and the best offense of the group.
I agree. I like Darius Slayton too, but that's like a long shot. It's still Tevin Coleman's the safest option among that group.
We're not talking about, well, we are talking about the Rams and Cardinals game, so I'll save that Christian Kirk comment for later. All right, Auk33, full point PPR. Start DK Metcalf at home against Minnesota or Robert Woods on the road against Arizona. You know, Robert Woods, he had an off-field situation arise that we still don't know any details of. He took some time away from the team. This Rams passing game is one that we don't know a lot about right now, can't really trust, versus a player who has up and down in DK Metcalf as well, Daigle.
What was the other one? DK Metcalf and who?
Or Robert Woods. And I will add this to DK Metcalf. If you want to attack somewhere in Minnesota's defense, their corners absolutely suck.
Yes, and I think we're probably going to transition to the Rams game after this, right? Because
a little bit later.
Okay, well, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, I think you trust them all. As we talked about on the podcast on Thursday, Jared Goff has been a matchup-dependent quarterback. And the fact is, he hasn't had 3 good matchups in a row now, which is why he's averaged 6 fantasy points in all 3 contests. But this matchup in particular against the Cardinals is one that every single offense gets right. Every quarterback gets right. So I do think Todd Gurley perhaps continues to struggle on his normal allotment of touches, but I love Robert Woods, who returned from injury last week and still had over a 20% target share, and I love Cooper Kupp today.
There's some more DK Metcalf questions. Big ups to the production team, putting them all in a row. I appreciate you. So, Ian, I'm going to go to you for this one. Grizz, DK Metcalf or Miles Sanders in the flex? Probably Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I go Sanders, but look, I love Metcalf. I'd take Metcalf over Robert Woods, honestly. I just think, I mean, all this guy gets are end zone targets and deep balls. It's arguably the most fantasy-friendly target share of anyone other, maybe like Kenny Galladay. And look, he hasn't been playing that great over the last 2 weeks. I know he dropped a touchdown last game, had another deep ball go through his hands. But when Josh Gordon came here, there was concern that he would take away snaps and targets, and that hasn't been the case at all. He's still been a full-time receiver. He's still getting the same types of targets. He's still a number 2 pass game option in Seattle.
DK Metcalf or Keenan Allen? That's from Rich Glitch, who's a avid viewer of this program every Sunday.
I think it's still Keenan Allen.
Yeah, it's worth noting that they did not have Chris Harris follow Keenan into the slot last matchup.
No respect.
Obviously, Harris is capable of doing that. The guy's been the best nickelback of the last decade, but they haven't done it, and, I think he can get loose against Duke Dawson, whoever they want to put on him.
Last one, Kess IRL, DK Metcalf, Sterling Shepard, or Tyrell Williams in half-point PPR. I know you've considered starting Sterling Shepard today as well.
Well, Sterling, I'd still go Metcalf over those 2 guys. I just know
again, it's important to note how bad these Vikings corners are.
Yeah, they're not good.
Xavier Rhodes is this big physical corner, and maybe they think he can match up against DK. All right, he's going to run right by him because Xavier Rhodes has no speed right now.
Metcalf's ceiling is probably higher, but I still feel like we're banking on touchdowns for that matter, whereas Shepard moves back into the slot, where he played 80% of his snaps before Golden Tate came back. And now, as we know, Golden Tate's out, Evan Ingram's out, Rhett Ellison's out, Benny Fowler was waived. So, it's a great opportunity for Shepard, a great one.
I like him over someone like Christian Kirk, but I really like Metcalf this week. So,
All right, let's go to the next Core 4 matchup. That's the Los Angeles Rams visiting the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals, despite our optimism and we think they're fun, they're just 3-7-1. Meanwhile, the Rams still have a winning record somehow. They're at 6-5. Let's first start on the Rams' offensive side of this one. Recently, despite that winning record, they've been unusable. Jared Goff is just bad behind a below-average offensive line. Todd Gurley might have 1 or 2 runs that are okay each and every week. And then Cooper Kupp goes from being a true wide receiver 1 each and every week to not catching a pass. So, Daigle, who do you trust in that lineup, if any, today?
It's Christian Kirk, and it is Kenyon Drake.
on the Rams side?
Well, I just talked about it. Cooper Kupp. And I asked about the transition, and you said later.
Well, yeah, because, we got to get the viewer questions in
You're
first.
right, 2 minutes
It's their
later.
show.
Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Todd Gurley, if you have to. He's a low-end running back, too. And then I think Jared Goff is a top 15, top 16 option this week.
No Darrell Henderson, Dale? All right, let's move on. Ian?
That one has come and gone.
I don't know if I can feel that good about
None of
wide
them do.
receivers. Jared Goff has the same quarterback rating as Mason Rudolph this season. It has been that bad. We cannot overstate how bad this is. They've scored 17 or fewer points in 3 straight games. That only happened 4 times total in 2017 and 2018 combined. So, yeah, I know Woods has been good recently. Kupp's too good to keep being this quiet, but it's just been brutal. And I don't know, I think we've all been waiting for the Rams to kind of figure things out. But here we are, week 13, and we're still waiting. I don't know if now is the time for them to get back. I will say, Gurley, since their week 10 bye, he's played since their week 9 bye, 81% snaps, 17.7 combined carries and targets per game. He's getting that workhorse role. His touches are even just a little bit down because of what happened last week with game flow. But he's back to that near every down role. We'll see how long he lasts with it. But while he's got it, I think he needs to be in your starting lineup.
Go ahead.
I completely get not trusting them. But it was Ravens, Bears, and Steelers, this 3-week murderers row, that they struggled. And then 2 games, literally just 2 games before that, Goff averaged 25 points in both against the Falcons and Bengals, who are on par with the Cardinals defense. It's the same matchup. So I know recency bias is, and that could be true, right? Because their offense has looked terrible the last 3 weeks. But again, I just think it's defense driven because this offense is not one anymore that thrives in matchups like that.
It's one of those that if the Rams don't respond in this game, if they don't show up in this game, it's a disaster.
You literally cannot trust them at all.
All right, let's look on the Cardinals side of this one. We know we're starting Kyler Murray no matter what. The Rams defense is solid, but it's not to the point where you shut down a player like Kyler Murray. What about Christian Kirk? What about Larry Fitzgerald? What about Kenyon Drake and this backfield with Chase Edmonds returning? Who are you looking at, Daigle?
I'll start with the Kenyon Drake one because it's interesting. We've now had 14 days. David Johnson, since he's played, 9 snaps, didn't get a single touch in that game. Chase Edmonds practiced throughout the week, so we're likely going to see all 3. But how does that shake out? Who gets the targets, which is the more important role? And if they just fade David Johnson away altogether, that sneakily makes Kenyon Drake still an RB3 every single week. So Drake is the safest option, but Drake is the only one I'm starting. As we talked about on the pod as well, I didn't even rank David Johnson in the top 50. I don't think you can.
He's been benched.
I don't think you can rank him in the top 60.
Oh, and he's clearly playing through injury, which just sucks that's happening. But we now have multiple weeks of evidence that they aren't going to give him touches, and now we got Chase Edmonds throwing a new wrench in this whole thing. So it seems like it's Kenyon Drake's backfield. We'll see how much it persists, but I'm afraid of these wide receivers too, because Christian Kirk has been a full-time outside receiver for these last 3 or 4 weeks now. They've kind of gone away from that 4 wide receiver base offense, seen a lot more Charles Clay, a lot more Max Williams. I think if I want to touch anyone else other than Drake, it'd be Larry Fitzgerald in the slot, and even that I don't feel great about.
And we know Nickel Roby Coleman's like 5'7", so if Larry Fitzgerald can win against someone, it's him. And by the way, just to talk about Kyler Murray, because I take every opportunity to do that, he's been a top 6 scorer in 5 of his last 7 games. This offense now is in top 10 offensive DVOA. It's amazing when you think about it, when they have these individual pieces that absolutely suck, and like Farrah Cooper, who the Rams cut, yet Cliff, Kyler, and company are able to drive this offense to an entertaining and good unit. It's a lot of fun.
14 days. More Andy Isabella?
Okay.
14 days to get them ready.
Daigle, it's time for you to pitch the DFS toolkit to everyone out there.
Rotoworld.com/DFS. I don't have a script, so we're just going off the cuff here. The DFS toolkit, obviously, that is still NFL 50, promo code 50% off?
Sure.
Okay, NFL 50, use the promo code. I think it works still. You're going to find out once you type it in. But the DFS toolkit, again, as I note every week, the points per dollar tool that we use. I do a show with Ian on Thursdays. Rotoworld's DFS building blocks that we actually use the toolkit and the projections within to get you started on the week. So if you got to jump this past week on the toolkit, then you're already prepared. So rotoworld.com/DFS, NFL 50. Hopefully that promo code still works.
Easy Mac Daddy. PPR, Joe Mixon or Rashad Penny. We'll talk about the Seahawks here in a little bit. We saw Rashad Penny break out last week, Ian. Long touchdown runs. Chris Carson still fumbling. Meanwhile, you have Joe Mixon, who should be elevated because Andy Dalton's back in the lineup.
Yeah, I'd roll Mixon. I think the touch guarantee is just way higher, but can they just throw the guy the ball? Joe Mixon is 7th on the Bengals in targets this season.
Wow.
Just throw the guy the ball. He
And
can catch it.
Him and Bernard averaged a team low 7% target share with Dalton in the lineup those first 8 games. So
One of the better usernames I've seen on this document, the Baked Lemon. Amazing. Ronald Jones, Tevin Coleman, LaShawn McCoy, and full point PPR. All right, let's get rid of Ronald Jones in that debate.
That's a good matchup for Ronald Jones.
What are you talking? I mean, but he's not getting. I mean, Peyton Barber is getting more red zone looks. Like, this is a situation.
I think it's coincidental.
Ronald Jones gets more catches, though. Calm down.
I mean, I would much rather start Tevin Coleman than Ronald Jones.
Yeah, that's fine. But like Ronald Jones, you probably start
over Shady.
Do you start Ronald Jones?
There's a conversation to be had about him.
Yeah, it's a close one.
All right, have that conversation.
Ronald Jones.
I don't want to bank my Week 13 on Ronald Jones.
Since Bruce Arians named Rojo the starter, he's getting 14 combined carries and targets, and I mean that was kind of with that weird game. We only had 6 rush attempts. I know Barber's sticking in that Frank Gore role where he doesn't play that many snaps, but when he does, he's getting handoffs up the middle. So I get it, but okay, I'll just play good players and good offenses. That's all Josh Norris wants to ever do. I get it. With that
Look, it's worked out this year. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I would feel a lot better if Darwin Thompson wasn't active. We'll see if that is, because I mean, look, Shady. Last time we saw him, he was so lucky to recover that fumble.
I agree.
Again. I mean,
I'm not saying I want to start LaShawn McCoy. I would just say Tevin Coleman's the easy one of these 3.
Okay. Okay. I thought start 2. Yeah, definitely Tevin Coleman.
Yeah, no, it's Tevin Coleman.
All right.
Ronald Jones has run at least 13 routes the last 4 weeks. It's a good matchup for Jones.
They get going
down,
on the
Don't
Jaguars
just
for sure.
Rid him from the sheet.
Come on, man.
Still prove something here, Ronald Jones. All right, Air Jordan 6159 and JPot 757 have the same question, and it's with Adam Thielen returning. He's missed multiple weeks. It's a passing offense that has mostly been good this season, but you're going to start Adam Thielen or Darrell Williams.
It's
close.
Adam Thielen.
It's real close.
I saw.
Because can't you picture the Chiefs today? I mean, just absolutely destroying the Oakland Raiders, and they're favored by 10 points, and Darrell Williams getting 15 touches.
Bad weather, Chiefs.
I could totally see it.
I'm not completely convinced that Thielen's going to play tomorrow night, too.
That's true, too.
I mean, if you don't have a good backup option, I think you got to go Darrell.
He did come out Saturday night or this morning. I'm not sure which one, but he said he's not playing unless he's 100%. And remember, he's already re-aggravated the hamstring injury one time. So, of course, he doesn't want to take the field. That's why he's a true question mark. So it's just weird. Like, you pretty much have to have Olabisi or a Josh Gordon on pivot ready to go, or DJ Lockett, I guess, if he's available wherever. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a pivot, either Sunday night, perhaps we get Thielen news, or tomorrow, then I guess you have no choice but to play Darrell Williams.
I am the FGC is also a loyal viewer of this program. We appreciate you. Sit one of these. Kenyon Drake, Mark Ingram, or Chris Carson. Thank you. All right, you're not benching Mark Ingram.
Not even if there's a fire.
Is that on the record? Is that a possibility?
There is rain, but it doesn't matter.
A fire, though.
If there's a fire, like, do not take Mark Ingram out of your fantasy lineups. That's all I'm saying.
All right. That's the Choppa prop.
Yes, of course.
Choppa prop. Okay.
100 yards and 2 tutties, Mark Ingram.
So then it's Kenyon Drake versus Chris Carson.
It's Chris Carson still.
Really?
Chris Carson versus, sorry?
Kenyon Drake.
Yes.
The only wrench is the 14 days David Johnson has had to rest now. What does that mean? And maybe it means absolutely nothing.
He's benched.
I don't think we can project that with certainty, though. I don't know if that's even the majority.
Kingsbury said they might try to use all 3 of them.
Oh.
I think they will.
Okay. Phantom SN had the same question as you did in the newsroom, Ian. Zach Ertz or Dallas Goedert? He has both in his roster.
Oh, man, this one's so tough.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's air the grievances here. Because Goddard, as you and I were talking before the show, Ertz.
I think arguably they are on the same level in terms of talent. Would you disagree with that?
Goddard has made some
help us starter sit, though.
No, but, I mean, so if Zach Ertz, he's been hurt, right? And that's the concern leading into this one? Right.
And it hasn't mattered the past 2 weeks.
Exactly.
I don't think the projection would change for whoever was the number 1 guy.
Right. So then why would it matter this week if he's been playing the last 2 weeks?
Because he didn't practice all week, and it seems like there's a re-aggravation there.
Okay.
And they elevated, is it Josh Perkins?
Josh Perkins.
Yeah, they brought in this other tight end. They're
they
playing the
sure.
Dolphins. It just seems like a game where, Ertz is active, but emergency only or something like that. And it just scares me. With Goddard, he's playing a full-time role regardless of what happens to Ertz. So maybe you get burnt, but he's still a good play.
In a vacuum, though, I'm still starting Ertz over Goddard. I'm still going 1 over the 1. I'm still starting Ertz over Goddard. But Goddard should still be ahead of all those tedious streamers like your Caden Smiths and your Tyler Higbees and whatnot.
I'm starting Tyler Higbee today in one league because I
Caden
forgot to
Smith
put
had elite usage
Jared Cook in my lineup. on Thanksgiving. All right, let's go to the next Core 4 matchup. This is the third game. The Patriots at the Texans. It's also Sunday Night Football, a game that all of you have to watch. It's mandatory. We know the Texans are 7-4. They're home here. And they face the New England Patriots, 10-1, just 3-point favorites on the road, 44.5 total in this one. Let's start on the Houston's side. Excuse me. Let's start on the Patriots side of this one. Ian, we know that Houston's defense stinks. J.J. Watt has been out for the season for quite a bit. This is kind of like the Cardinals, where if the Patriots don't respond, if they don't show up today, then it's time for some concern. A lot of people will want to play Patriots because they're a good team. Who are you looking to play in this one?
This has to be the get-right spot. I mean, this is perfect. If we're going to see the Patriots offense take a leap like it's going to be this week moving forward, because right now they're 23rd in yards per play. They've been a below-average offense this year, everything except on the scoreboard, because they're continuously getting set up so well by their defense. But with that said, I mean, there's just a lot of uncertainty here with snaps. We're expecting Sanu to come back, but we've already seen 2 games this year where he played but was limited. So I think Julian Edelman is really the only wide receiver you can surefire throw up. I mean, Philip Dorsett's
not even Sanu.
I'm nervous about Sanu with the limited snaps. I mean, the way Harry and Myers played last week, it wouldn't shock me at all to see, Edelman playing his usual full-time role and the rest of these guys kind of splitting stuff up.
Let's say Sanu is, and we don't know this for sure, but I think if we know like a week that he practices in full, that he's going to play 100% of snaps, and he's a locked-in play-in each and every week. I think Sanu is an integral part of this offense.
No, I don't disagree with that,
but we don't know.
We don't know. But we do know that we haven't seen the Patriots offense, as Ian said. That's why we're not worried. We haven't seen them play in good weather in 8 quarters. And now they're playing inside NRG Stadium. So I would think it is the perfect get-right spot for them.
This is one when people drive into work on Monday morning, again, listen to the Rotoworld Football Podcast, that we say, oh, the Patriots have figured it out offensively. This is the start of that towards the end of the stretch.
Could Sony Michel be the reason why? Because they got Texans, Chiefs, Bengals, Bills. You can run all those teams.
All right, let's look at the Texans offense. This is a team that is built on the big play. They in losses, you can just point to them not hitting those big plays. And wins, like last week, Will Fuller had, I think, 2 massive, almost 50-yard receptions. So, Daigle, we know DeAndre Hopkins isn't really that vertical threat anymore. Kenny Stills is. Will Fuller is. Can all 3 of those players hit against the Patriots this week? Because they're going to have to if the Texans have any chance of winning.
It's just – so we know Gilmore's on Hopkins, right? Hopkins has averaged 70 yards with Will Fuller on the field in the 7 games they've played together. However, he's still scored 4 touchdowns, 4 of his 6 with Fuller on the field at the same time as well. So Hopkins is like a top 15 locked-in floor play. But Fuller, we're not starting Fuller chasing his points just from last week. How many times have we done this year already? How many times have we done this his career? He goes for 100 yards and explodes. It is the toughest matchup, arguably, in the league against that secondary. So I'm not running to Fuller just because he had 100 yards against the Colts last week. That seems crazy, right? Like, he's still an WR4, probably?
Wow.
I'd say 3. I mean, the thing is, I agree with you. He has these duds, but there's a lot of guys that don't have the booms. So the fact he does have that in his range of outcomes is nice. Again, it does help that McCourty's out, so we're going to see him on Jonathan Jones, J.C. Jackson. The whole secondary is legit. So again, this is not a spot you should be running to. I agree with you there. But I mean, do not play Kenny Stills. Like, we saw him take a clear back seat last week, more 60% guy, because they're still using Fells and Akins, their tight ends, a lot. But I think Fuller's a kind of boom or bust wide receiver 3.
That's fair. And it's interesting. McCourty's obviously the better player, but J.C. Jackson, remember,
they're all good.
That's who they used as the Lamar Jackson imitation when practicing, because Jackson runs a 4.3. So they used him at quarterback and on their team in practice.
Let's answer some quarterback questions from L1 Prof. Sam Darnold or Carson Wentz? We've seen Sam Darnold be in a really, really hot streak, play really, really good football, and a lot of it is because the opposing teams that they're playing cannot rush the passer. That's probably the case this week on the road against Cincinnati, a Bengals defense that is absolutely atrocious, versus, again, Carson Wentz, who's a great matchup against the Miami Dolphins as well.
The Darnold one is so tough. Darnold seems to have set the bar for top 12 quarterbacks this week. So it's just a matter of, do you want to stream him or not against Wentz? Which way are you leaning?
I think I'd go Darnold. I mean, look, he's been putting up these numbers lately and cake matchups, and guess what? There's another cake matchup on the way. So I just think there's a better chance that we see the Jets and Bengals actually kind of compete with each other, and there's a high likelihood I think the Eagles just run all over the Dolphins and finish it.
Any concern with weather there? Because I know it's been raining. We've got a couple of questions from Avi, Shay Hay, just asking about the Jets' offense and weather disrupting there in Cincinnati.
Well, Daigle is our roto weatherman, so.
I did not know that.
Well, it's because I'm the person who blanket says, stop worrying about weather. You're all going to drive yourselves crazy. Like, it doesn't matter whatsoever. No, I think that game is like the least of the concerns. That one has like 15-mile-an-hour winds. We know wind doesn't matter till over 20 miles an hour, so I don't care at all.
So the biggest weather game, though, is probably Cleveland and Pittsburgh. I know it's been like a rainstorm there all morning, but it should hold up once kickoff starts.
Giants-Packers is the big weather one.
Okay.
That's like 100% precipitation.
Which is right outside.
Probably some Connecticut snow going on. Yeah. That's the big weather one.
Jerry Peters, who's been another loyal viewer, we appreciate you. Yo, thanks for helping me every week. You're welcome. Thanks for keeping us employed. Should I start Jarvis Landry or DJ Moore? You can't bench DJ Moore right now. I mean, 3 or 4 straight weeks of 95-plus yards.
I want to hear who the other wide receivers are that are keeping Jarvis Landry on this guy's bench. I mean, no, it's a great problem to have.
He's been listening so much to the Rotoworld football podcast and the show that he just has an incredible roster.
You said you can't bench DJ Moore, and my initial reaction was you can't bench Jarvis Landry, but I guess you have to. I guess you have to.
No, I think DJ Moore, yeah.
He has to win or lose this week. Who are you going with?
It's DJ Moore.
DJ Moore.
As starting him.
The other 2 receivers on your roster better be like Chris Godwin and Mike Evans or something, because that's crazy.
Yeah, Landry's an every week upside wide receiver 2, like at worst right now. He could even call him a wide receiver 1.
David Brookings 1. Good morning, dudes. Half-point PPR. Crazy to play Ronald Jones over Odell. Yes.
Insane.
Insane to the membrane. All right, let's go next to the final Core 4 matchup. That is the Minnesota Vikings at the Seattle Seahawks. This is Monday Night Football. You have the 8-3 Vikings versus the 9-2 Seahawks, who are at home and 3-point favorites. No Jadeveon Clowney last week. He is returning in this one, we think. So what will that do for Christian Kirk? He has 8 touchdowns in the last 3 games. Is he possibly a top 8 quarterback this week against the Seattle Seahawks, Ian?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this for most of the year. He's a QB9 over, most fantasy points this season. So that's about where he's been. And if we've learned one thing, and we talk about this Vikings secondary, you can say the same thing about the Seahawks secondary. I mean, I don't think we need to be freaking out.
Look at those last 3 games. I mean, the yardage wasn't so high against Kansas City and Dallas, 220, but no interceptions. No interceptions for Kirk Cousins is a big deal. And again, 8 touchdowns in those games.
He's playing well. I mean, the more interesting thing I think is like if Thielen's there, like what's his target distribution going to look like? Because we have, of course, a big chunk of the season with Thielen active. In those games, Thielen had 38 targets, Diggs had 34, Dalvin Cook 26, and the next closest Kyle Rudolph all the way down at 11. So they've really funneled their pass game production through Thielen, Diggs, and Dalvin Cook this season.
Dalvin Cook led them in targets, I believe, without Thielen, and so that kind of goes away. Dalvin will still be involved, obviously. Yeah. He averaged 3 targets per game when Thielen was on the field. But, yeah, it really just depends on who they have out at their disposal.
This Seattle backfield is an important one. Let's go to the Seattle offense because, again, I keep mentioning it because he's in a lot of my rosters. I stacked Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, Chris Carson, and now as we approach the playoffs, I want Chris Carson to still get 18 touches a game. He might not need more. We saw Brian Schottenheimer come out and say that, well, we're still going to stick with Chris Carson. Again, fumbles change that. Rashad Penny playing well changes that. What's your read against this Minnesota defense?
So last week was a big shift. We saw Chris Carson down to 54% snaps. Penny was at 46. Penny actually out-touched him. And I hope we can figure it out soon because we got the Vikings and Rams, and after that, we got the Panthers and Cardinals in weeks 15 and 16. So hopefully, by the final weeks of your fantasy playoffs, we know what's going to happen in this backfield. Right now, I think it's almost anyone's guess. I mean, it seems like a hot hand approach situation. It's not like Rashad Penny has been this bad running back since he entered the league. It's more so been Chris Carson's been so good. How can you take the guy off the field? Well, now he's fumbling the ball every other time he touches it, even more so than he was at the beginning of the year. So, man, they're very close. I still think Carson works as the kind of de facto lead back, but it's not going to be the 80-20 split we saw for most of the year.
And that's just it. I know we are here to project and tell them the answer. I don't think there's a certain answer though for this. The argument has been is that it happened before. They'll just go back to Chris Carson. But I think the reason they went back to him the first time is the reason they don't go back to him the second time.
Oh no,
we've done this before.
Oh no.
So I would and this is just my guess, but educated guess would tell me Carson 60-40.
Okay, educated.
That's what I agree.
60-40 is it? Very educated. How about that?
There you go.
60-40 is fair, right? Is that what you?
Sure, that works. I need to tell everyone about the Sunday Night 7, by the way. I know you're going to watch tonight's Sunday Night Football game. Join the fun with the all-new Sunday Night 7 game on the NBC Sports Predictor app. It's free. It's easy to play. Just make 7 simple predictions about what will happen in Sunday Night Football. for your chance to win $2 million in guaranteed cash prizes this season. $100K, $100,000 is up for grabs in each contest. Again, that's the Sunday Night 7 game on the NBC Sports Predictor app. Let's help people with like end of roster decisions, shall we?
Okay.
M.1906, 14-team PPR draft. Should I start Corey Davis or Phillip Dorsett? A.J. Brown's the premier receiver.
I go Phillip Dorsett.
I agree.
Phillip Dorsett. And also, you say A.J. Brown's the premier receiver. A.J. Brown's the elite, better receiver. But remember, just like we've seen all year, his usage didn't change last week. He still played 70% of the snaps because they'll never insert him as like their true number one receiver.
I think they're both very good.
The one time that A.J. Brown was used as the number one receiver, Corey Davis was out, and he caught one 17-yard pass. So
this one comes directly from the control room. Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins? It's so wild to me. We keep doing all these shows and we don't get any Aaron Rodgers questions because he's just not playing that good football right now.
It's a terrific matchup though against the Giants. Still allowing.
But we think it's an Aaron Jones game, don't we?
A little bit.
Why can't it be Aaron Rodgers game?
It could. I mean, it could be a double.
Why can't it be both?
Aaron Rodgers is like out of the football lexicon at the moment. It's kind of, it's wild.
He's throwing the ball to Devontae Adams, and other than that, I don't know what's going on in that Packers offense.
All right, let's keep it going. This is from Chelly, 31. Robert Woods, Devontae Parker, or hold out for Adam Thielen. Probably want to play Robert Woods in that scenario.
Yeah, I go Woods.
But you guys are like the biggest Devontae Parker fan club I've ever met.
I don't know why you aren't. He's a wide receiver 20.
Making things up on
crazy.
live television. I can't believe it.
All right, let's keep it going.
Receiver, you're crazy.
With TBA 1981, Hollywood Brown, A.J. Brown, Darius Slayton, DK Metcalf. I have to pick one of those. Full point PPR. Which one's your favorite? I love A.J. Brown, dude. One of my favorite players in the league.
He does really well on 3 to 4 targets per game. So give me DK Metcalf, who gets that in end zone and deep balls alone.
And this one, the answer is DK Metcalf. Yes.
Cool. All right, we'll do one more question, then get out of here. Let's do this one. LaShawn McCoy, Kareem Hunt, or Benny Snell? That's from CDL 1967.
I want to say Kareem Hunt. I mean, it's not even like a full 50-50 split in Cleveland. It's like a 60-60 split almost because Hunt is so special as a receiver. They're using him as slot. They're using him out wide, and they're getting him his targets. So, yeah, Shady, we talked about some of the concerns there earlier. Snell, I know he had the touches last week, the snaps, and that was your best case scenario with Benny Snell against the Bengals, and all these other guys were still kind of banged up. So, yeah, I think I'd go Kareem.
I'm going Kareem too. His receiving use is just far too important. And remember, they continue using that pony personnel on over 40% of their snaps. They put both him and Chubb on the field at the same time.
Yep.
I lied. Let's do one more. Austin Gross.
Do more than that.
Because this is an important one, and I have no idea which direction to go. If Gardner Minshew was starting, I would definitely go DJ Chark. But this one's DJ Chark versus Melvin Gordon in full point PPR. And you mentioned that Melvin Gordon's getting like 20 touches per game lately.
Yeah, I mean, DJ Chark is a wide receiver 1 as he's been all year.
But is he still? Is he still?
Why isn't he?
Because Nick Foles is throwing him the football, and to me, that offense is just
Had 2 touchdowns with Nick Foles 2
He's
weeks
still
ago.
getting all the downfield targets.
With that said, still give me the running back that's getting 20-plus touches.
Yeah, we're arguing moot points because the thing is we could also look to DJ Chark's matchup against the Bucs, like the best matchup possible for receivers. However, it is still not only Gordon's 20 touches, but again, Drew Lock on the other side enhances Gordon's ceiling because I would imagine he gets shorter fields and they have an uptick in play volume.
All right, we're going to close off the air with a wonderful deal for everyone out there. It's our first ever Black Friday sale. That was last Friday, but we're extending it. You don't have to fight through the angry mobs like
Cyber
Ian
Monday
loves to do. So the best thing to do, if you pre-order the MLB Draft Guide and Season Pass for $34.99, you get the 2019 NFL, NHL, and NBA Season Passes for free. And if you're looking for an added edge for those fantasy playoffs and are looking to dominate in baseball this season, a lot of you are baseball fantasy players as well, this is a $99 value. And if you play DFS, you won't be able to beat our second Black Friday bundle. If you pre-order the MLB Draft Guide Season Pass and DFS Toolkit, that's $130. You'll get the 2019 NFL, NHL, and NBA Season Pass and DFS Toolkit for free. Again, that's all for free. That's a $430 value for $130. So go and check those out at rotoworld.com/win.
Now
For
breathe
Ian,
out.
For Daigle.
Now breathe out.
For Josh. That does it for us. Good luck, everyone, in Week 13. And go subscribe to the Rotoworld Football Podcast right now.